Well, we are in part 2 today of Starve the Algorithm, Feed Your Soul, and it looks like some of you are brave enough to come back for week 2, and we'll see if you're willing to come back for week 3 after today. And we're talking about, if you weren't with us, what are algorithms doing to your soul? That the feed in our lives, we're becoming familiar with these algorithms that are programmed, that are feeding our souls, and in a sense, you could argue, shaping us. And the reason this is important is because what happens to our soul determines the trajectory of our life. Solomon writes in Proverbs, "Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life." That where your soul is at is where you're ending up in life. So you got to pay attention to what's happening. And the reason we're having this conversation now is because something has changed. Something has changed, that we have screens that we look at, all kinds of screens to see our world. That's been around for a long time now. But what's changed is that every screen is a lens that actually looks back at you. That you're not just looking at the world, but the screen is looking back at you, and it's saying, hey, what will keep you on this screen? What can I show you? What can I feed you? What can I put in front of you? Anything to keep you locked in on your screen. And as a result, what's happening is distraction is no longer intentional, it's actually formational. That our screens aren't just distracting us, they're actually shaping us. Because if this video gets you, then I'm going to show you this video, and I'm going to show you that video. And all of a sudden, we start to think along those lines. All of a sudden, we start to become shaped that way. All of a sudden, we become the center of the universe in our own minds. And all of a sudden, we get caught in a bias, in a tunnel, in a blind spot where we don't actually know anymore what's happening in the world around us, but everything is changing and shaping our soul. And we know there's something wrong with that. And when you walked away last week, I talked about what you focus on forms you. We looked at Jesus. We looked at Paul saying, set your sights on Jesus. We talked about what that looks like. But you might have walked out of here and said, Jeff, and I had conversations with people like this, my algorithm is really messed up. Like what I see in my feed, I know there's stuff there not good. I know there's stuff there that's not healthy. But like I can't just delete all my social media apps. Like I can't just put my head in the sand, or I need my social media app for my business. I mean, how can I actually make it healthier? How can I change it? And I want to start today by helping you do that in a real practical way. I want to share with you 5 ways to retrain your algorithm. That if you said, hey, I need to change my TikTok feed. This is causing me to lust. This is causing me to be jealous. This is causing me to be angry. This is causing me anxious. How do I retrain it? And I'm going to give you a crash course real quick right now. Okay, so the first one is leverage your settings. Every one of your apps has settings on it. Every one of your kids' apps has a setting on it. And most people don't ever venture into the settings. But if you go in there, you can create all kinds of filters that will make your feed healthier. Use the unfollow or the not interested button. That you can actually push on that button. And you can unfollow. And you can say, I'm not interested. And you might say, well, you know, I saw this. I know it wasn't healthy. I clicked not interested, and it showed me another one. Yes, it doesn't take away temptation. It just makes you unfollow. So once you do that a few times, eventually that's going to change. This takes about 2 weeks for some people. The next one is seed with search. Most apps have a search bar. Put healthy things in there and search them. Spend 10 minutes twice this week. It's going to change what's coming in your feed. Swipe fast on the unhealthy things. A lot of us know that already. And focus on and share the healthy things. If you do these 5 things over the next 2 weeks, things will change on your feed. And if you're like, yeah, but Jeff, I really want to drill down. It's TikTok that gets me because, I mean, TikTok is the most addictive app invented to this point in our lives. And if you're like, yeah, but I'm just really struggling, we've actually created 4 tools on our homepage, one for TikTok, one for Instagram, one for YouTube, one for Facebook, that you can go there and it really kind of goes into a step-by-step process. If after 2 weeks you do all that and you're like, Jeff, I can't get it to change, like this is still a problem, we're going to have a genius bar here in 2 weeks that you can go to and someone will sit down with you and look at your app and help you to retrain it, okay? Confidentially, all right? So we want to help you because people go, I want to go deep in my faith, and we think deep in our faith is more Bible studies. You can go to 10 Bible studies, but if you're not applying what you're learning, you're not growing in your faith. And so we want to make it applicable, right? We're not here to just teach theology. We want to actually make it applicable to your life. Does that make sense? So, because I want to give you something practical. Now, today we're talking about anger online and the anger that we see online. And you did a survey, which of the following most often makes you angry online? I haven't seen the results of these, so we're going to throw it up where you landed. Seeing people being treated unfairly, 40%. Okay, that's higher than the last service. You guys are nicer than they are. Okay. Political or culture, war posts, okay, 27%. Hypocrisy, double standards, 22%. Comparing my life to others, highlight reels, 10%. So this gives you a feel of the room. The interesting thing is you see the breakdown. And the reason that's so important is to help you understand that the algorithm used different things to make you angry. It's looking for what frustrates you. It's looking for what makes you angry. It's looking for what makes that ugly thing well up inside you. And anger, connected with fear, I would say, is the top emotion the algorithm leverages to keep us engaged online. So I watched this. This made me angry. How is this possible? Next thing you know, you get another one. That makes me angry. Then another one. And often they get more and more extreme at times. Or it comes back again, and you start to go, man, this is really upsetting. This is really angry. Have you ever been on your phone, and you're like, listen, I just got to check my email, and 10 minutes later, you're like an activist. You know what I mean? You're like, did you know? Did you know? And you're the activist about things you never thought you'd be an activist about, right? Did you know they put red dye 10 in the Kool-Aid? And how is this possible? Did you know that this is going on the other side of the world? That you knew nothing about it 10 minutes ago, and now you're an expert and an activist. Because it's continuing to feed that anger inside you. And here's the problem. You don't actually want to be an angry person. Right? I didn't have to do a poll today on who wants to be angry? Right? Nobody wants to be angry. You don't want to be known as I'm just an angry person all the time. But somehow you're living in this angry atmosphere. Somehow you're stuck in these cycles of frustration. And often you feel that way when you get off your phone. What is that all about? Why, if we don't want to be angry, why do we like being angry? Why? And I've been asking this question, why? And here's kind of my thought on this. Initially, anger feels like clarity. It feels like clarity. It feels clear. Because what happens is the algorithm, it polarizes, right? So that creates clarity for you. Oh, I get it. They're bad. I'm good. Oh, I get it. I'm smart. They're idiots. Oh, I get it. They politically don't understand what I understand. Oh, I get it. They haven't seen the 10-minute video that I've seen. And it creates this clarity. And that's what the algorithm wants. It polarizes continually because it gives you this kind of shot of oh, for once the world is clear. And we think that a 30-second video is an accurate take on things that are global affairs around the world. And it also gives us energy. There's this level of cortisol. It kind of pushes on the pain in our life. When you hurt yourself physically and you kind of get that shot of adrenaline that comes into your body, you get that same thing when you get that anger because it touches on the pain in your life. And you get this adrenaline rush. And so it feels like, oh, it's clear, and I feel like this is important and this is good. It creates this identity oh, look, there's a whole bunch of people who think what I think. Oh, now that I see, I knew there were millions of us. I knew that my neighbor is a moron. We're together on this. This is my group. We all think the same way. See, there's lots of people like me out there. And there's a safety in it, right? There's a safety of getting angry because you're what? You're on a keyboard. You're not sitting in front of somebody physically. You're on a keyboard. I could have done a poll today. How many people have texted or commented or said something on their phone they would never say in person? 100%. We've all done that. It was all of a sudden, it's well, right? We've all done it. We would never, ever, ever say that to that person's face. And you know what all of this is, if we name it? It's self-righteousness. I know what's right. I know what's best. I've got the corner on this. They're wrong, I'm right. She's wrong, I'm right. They're idiots, I'm smart. They're ignorant, I'm knowledgeable. And that is dangerous. And if you call yourself a follower of Jesus here today, we believe our righteousness comes from Christ. Because we're not righteous. And so he died on the cross, lived a perfect life to die for our sin, to die for our lack of righteousness. We're only righteous because of him. And what this anger teaches us is, no, I'm righteous because of me. And that's what makes it so dangerous. And you know what? You don't want to live your life angry, frustrated, and self-righteous. So how do we change it? How do you find freedom? How do I stay healthy? How do I stay healthy when the algorithm feeds outrage to try to get my attention? And what I want to do today is I want to look at a teaching from Jesus. And I'm going to warn you right up front. Whenever I'm sick with a cold, I've got options, right? You've got comfort food and you've got medicine. And the comfort food makes you feel better, but the medicine is often what heals. And this is a little bit like that today. Jesus is pretty direct, just so you know. And Jesus says, hey, in Luke 6, here are my disciples. He says, if you're going to be my disciple, it's going to be difficult to follow me. He says, hey, just a heads up, if you're thinking about following me, it's not an easy thing. But then he says, listen, I want to show you how to have freedom when it comes to conflict in your life, but it's not going to be easy. And he says this in Luke 6. He says, but to you who are willing to listen, if you're brave enough to lean in, he says, I say, love your enemies. Some of you are like, all right, that's it, I'm done. But we're only one verse in. Love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who hurt you. Have you ever tried to pray for someone you hate? There's someone who I was upset with, and I tried to pray for them this week because I was like, Lord, I got to pray because I got to preach on this weekend, and so I can't get up there if I don't do this. Because you know what? I'm a human being just like you. And when you pray for someone, it's hard to be mad at that person. There's something that changes in your heart. There's something that forms in your heart. There's something, and that's what Jesus is getting at here. Hey, bless them, pray for them, and love them because your heart is going to change. You see, this is the thing. The algorithm wants escalation all the time. Ramp it up, ramp it up, ramp it up. Show you the most extreme, show you the most controversial, get you to lean polarly as far as you can. And Jesus says it's not about escalation, it's about formation. It's about formation. Hey, when you're angry, this is a chance for you to be shaped like me. See, the way to freedom is to be formed like Jesus, but it doesn't happen quickly, and it's not easy. But he says, I want to see your heart formed like mine. And that's why I'm challenging you to do this. And then he says this. He says, if someone slaps you on one cheek, offer the other cheek also. If someone slaps you, offer them the other cheek. Now, this is a really interesting one to me. We've talked about this before. Slapping on the cheek is it's like a backhanded slap in that culture. It's like a shameful slap like that. And what he's saying is, hey, if someone hits you, what he's getting at, he's not talking about physical hitting. He's giving you an illustration about if someone says something and you don't agree, would you give them a second chance to explain themselves? Would you be a person who would be curious enough not to jump to conclusions? Would you be someone who says, listen, this is what you said, but I'm wondering if this is what you meant. Or what you said actually was a little bit hurtful to me. I wanted to give you a chance to explain yourself. I want to give you the benefit of the doubt. Why don't you just try to explain that to me one more time? Can I ask you a question? And then he says, if someone demands your coat, offer your shirt also. That's about generosity. Hey, give a generous explanation. that you want to go the extra mile to give that person an opportunity to have a real conversation with you. And the interesting thing about these things is, to me, is how they're so present. Like, they're so personal. Like, I don't know how many people here have punched somebody in the face. But there is, I'm talking when you're a kid, not in an inappropriate way. You know, you get in a schoolyard fight or something, and you realize there's something personal about that. There's something about proximity here. He's saying, hey, listen, you can't treat people like they're way far away. You got to get in proximity with people. You got to give them a chance to explain themselves. You got to be generous to them. You can't just be lobbing bombs over the keyboard and forgetting there's a person on the other end. And then he says to this, give to anyone who asks, and when things are taken away from you, don't try to get them back. And then he says this, the golden rule we've heard about, do to others as you would have them do to you. If someone was upset with you, and you would want them to give you the benefit of the doubt, if you would want them to be curious, if you would want them to be generous, if you would want them to be gracious, if you would want them to treat you as a human being, then that's what you need to do with someone else. Now what Jesus isn't saying here is be a doormat. We have to stand up for what's right. We have to stand up for justice. Scripture would say that. He's not saying be a doormat, but he's saying keep the door open. You got to find a way to keep the relational door open even when you disagree. From an algorithm standpoint, I would say it this way. Don't be passive, but be unprogrammable. What do I mean by that? Don't be passive. You don't stand up for anything. But don't allow the algorithm to program you. Don't give in to the reactive. Don't be reaction. It's coming at you and saying, come on. Comment, you need to tell them. I know there are 80 comments, but the 81st is going to be the one that changes their mind. You got to say something. You know what you need to do? You need to share this with your buddy and tell your buddy how much this person is an idiot. And give in and don't give into it. Don't give in to the programming. Don't give in to that culture. You can be active in standing up for what's right, absolutely, but don't be programmed by the reactive anger. Come on, baiting you culture. And then he says this, if you love only those who love you, why should you get credit for that? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good only to those who do good to you, why should you get credit? Even sinners do that much. He's saying, listen, you're not living in the real world if you just hang out with everybody who thinks like you. If you're going to be a disciple of mine, you don't just surround yourself with people who all think like you, all think the same thing as you, all have biases like you. But actually, are you hanging out with people you would disagree with? Are you rubbing shoulders with people you might not agree with? Are you forcing yourself to be formed? Are you forcing yourself to step outside your biases and understand where someone else might be coming from? See, if I could sum it up, the algorithm trains reaction and Jesus forms response. The algorithm wants you to react. It wants you to do something real quick. You're not going to react to this one, I'll show you the next one. You're not going to react to this one, I'm going to show you the next one. And Jesus says, hey, wait a minute. Why don't you form an actual thoughtful response? Instead of watching that 10-minute YouTube video and thinking you know everything about a global issue, maybe you should do a little research and form an actual response. Before you watch 5 minutes on that political leader and only watch it from one person, from one angle, and then you just react to it and become an expert on it and spout off about it at work and post about it online, maybe you should actually open your Bible, spend some time, and form a thoughtful response. That's how formation happens. And then he says this, and if you lend money only to those who can repay you, why should you get credit? Even sinners will lend to other sinners for a full return. Now, why is he talking about money? At first when I read this passage, I was like, I don't get it. You're talking about loving your enemies. Now you're talking about lending money. Like this feels like we're taking a turn here. What he's talking about is in that culture, financial lending, there were no institutions. It wasn't institutional when you lent money, it was relational. So you lent to somebody you loved and trusted. You lent to your brother, You lent to your best friend. You got in the corner of somebody and you lent them funds. That was kind of the system at the time. But what was happening was people are going, hey, wait a minute. I'm going to leverage this to make money. I'm going to lend to my brother if he can pay me back at a good rate. I'm going to lend to my neighbor if I can make some money off them. I'm going to start actually lending to more people and send my thugs in to make sure they pay me. And all of a sudden, what was relational is becoming transactional. And he's saying, listen, you cannot treat people transactionally. When you treat people transactionally, you dehumanize them. See, our online communication should be relational, not transactional. And what does that mean? If we're not going to dehumanize the person on the other side of the keyboard. We're going to recognize there's someone's son, there's someone's daughter, there's someone's friend. They might not disagree, they might not agree with you, but they're a human being. Don't dehumanize them. And the transactional part of it, the way we dehumanize people, you know how we do that? We make it win-lose. I must win the argument. Like, have you looked at the comments? Like, you shouldn't look at the comments, but have you looked at the comments? And it is amazing to me how this goes from a discussion to like just drool. Because two people are debating, they can't agree, so what does somebody do? They just dehumanize the other person. Like it turns into like 5-year-olds. It turns into, well, you're an idiot, and look what you wear, and I saw you post this. I'm like, this isn't even about the issue anymore. Because they want to win at all costs. And so they treat the other person like a transaction. And when you do that, you don't treat them as the human being God made them to be, even if you can't see them. And then, because there's more if you can believe it, okay? Because it gets even harder. He says, love your enemies. Do good to them. Lend to them without expecting to be repaid. Then your reward from heaven will be very great, and you will truly be acting as children of the Most High, for he is kind to those who are unthankful and wicked. And then he says this. He says, you must be compassionate just as your Father is compassionate. When you stand up for justice, when you have a debate with someone, when you stand up for what you think is right, do it with compassion. That's how he wants to shape your heart. Theologian Tim Keller, he talks about this passage, and he says this. He says, they are passionate about justice, but they do it without an ounce of vindictiveness or revenge in their hearts. It's one thing to stand up for what's right, but to do it with a heart that is formed around the calling of Jesus. That's what forms you. That's what's challenging. That's what's compassionate. And then he says this. He says, do not judge others, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn others, or it will come back against you. Forgive others, and you will be forgiven. Now, this is a little confusing, because in other passages, Jesus says you should judge. And here he's saying you shouldn't judge. So, like, what does he mean? Well, in some contexts, he's talking about making good judgment about situations and about people and making good decisions about what you should get involved in and not, and who you should be involved with and who not. So that's what he's talking about, wise judgment. But here what he's talking about is if you're going to be a judgmental person, if you are not going to show compassion, if you're going to be someone who just walks around condemning people, if you're going to be someone who just doesn't forgive other people, and that becomes your reputation, you will get treated the same way. That's why he says, treat others the way you want to be treated. See, what happens to us is we're so quick to judge. We're so quick to think we know. We're so quick in our self-righteousness, you could argue. There's a study done in 1999 and by Dunning-Kruger, and I find this fascinating. I've read about it for a few years now. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And they did this study, and this is what they found out. When it comes to knowledge, okay, when it comes to knowledge, let me show you this. This blue line is knowledge over time and accuracy. And what this is saying is, as you study something over time, you become more knowledgeable about it. You become more accurate about it, right? This is how someone becomes an expert. They study a topic. They study a subject. They study a current issue. They study whatever it might be. And you want people who study things over time, and as you study things over time, you become more accurate. That makes sense, right? This red line is your confidence journey. You are the most confident when you know the least about a topic. They call it the beginner's bubble. Because what happens is as you study that topic, you start to realize, oh, it's more complicated than I thought. Oh, there's more to it than I thought. Oh, there's more issues here than I thought. There are more factors than I thought. There are more sides to this than I thought. When do we most often on this continuum make the decision to like, repost, and comment? Here. We've watched a short video and we think we know. We see something that wells up that anger in us. We feel that like, okay, now I feel clear. I feel this energy. I feel like I belong, and these are my people, and they're right, and I want to say something. And we take huge issues and we comment on them because we've watched a 5-minute video or a 30-second clip that we don't even know if it's a deep fake or it's real some of the time. And what Jesus is saying is, man, you got to form a response, not just a reaction. See, I think the algorithm creates more blind spots than it actually exposes. We think when we see a video, we see these videos and we think, oh man, I had a blind spot. I didn't know anything about that. But what we're seeing is like little snippets of 1,000 issues. We know 1% of 1,000 things. And so what happens is it's actually creating blind spots for many of us. It's not actually helping us with blind spots because we don't take the time to actually form a response. And then he says this, and why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? How can you saying, friend, let me help you get rid of that speck in your eye when you can't see past the log in your own eye? How can you start walking around telling people about what they should do and where they should go when you're not actually looking in the mirror? He says, hypocrite. First, get rid of the log in your own eye, and then you will see well enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye. Saying, hey, listen, before you start putting opinions out there, before you start reposting, before you start liking, basically start looking in the mirror first. Start looking at yourself first. See, at the heart of this is humility. Humility brings clarity. When you choose to be humble, it will make things clear. Andy Stanley has this quote that I love. He says, the self-righteous are rarely self-aware. The more self-righteous you feel, often the less you actually know about where you're coming from, about who you are, about what's going on in the inside of you. I mean, one of the most things that we do that I think we just don't even realize is you have a bad day and you're on social media online later that day and you think you're reacting out of justice, but really what you're doing is reacting to the day you just had. You're self-righteous, but you're not very self-aware. I told you, this is not easy. And then he says this. He says, a good person produces good things from the treasury of a good heart. And an evil person produces evil things from the treasury of an evil heart. And then he says, it's like he puts this sentence right at the end. What you say flows from what is in your heart. Or, as we read in Proverbs, the condition of your soul determines the trajectory of where you're going. The condition of your heart determines where you're going to end up. What is coming out of your heart into the keyboard? What is coming out of your heart into your phone? What is coming out of your heart out of your mouth? He's saying, listen, let's choose to be self-aware before we start getting too self-righteous. Where are we at? Where are we coming from? What do we need to work on? Have we formed a response? Are we curious? Are we generous? Are we loving? See, the algorithm wants escalation. That's what it wants because it drives more and more time online. But Jesus says, I want formation. I want to see you shaped like me. I want to see you look like me. I don't want you to live in a world and a culture and a constant feeling of anger and frustration. I want you to invest the time to be freed from that. At the heart of this is Jesus' desire for you to be free. But formation takes time. But as you say, Jesus, I want you to form me. Jesus, I want you to shape me. Jesus, this is making me angry. I know I want to respond to it, but what would you have me do? What would it mean to form a response? I want to react. I want to respond. I want to react. Show me how to respond. Shape me. Mold me. Help me pray for this person. Help me to step back. Help me to take a moment. Help me to realize this is a human being on the other side. Jesus, I want you to form me. And when you begin to see the world in a way that you recognize your need to have compassion on other people in a way that you hope they would have compassion on you. When you start to choose that, your heart starts to be shaped like Jesus. And you live less in a world of frustration and more in a world of freedom. And as hard as this is, that's what you really want. You want to be free. And anger and frustration aren't the way there. Being formed by Jesus is. And when the algorithm this week, when the algorithm shouts escalation, would you go to Jesus for formation? Would you say, I'm going to take a moment and pray? Would you? Because I'm not trying to turn everybody into monks and say, delete all your apps. I'm saying you got to figure out how to leverage this to form you like Jesus. When Jesus died on the cross to make you actually righteous in your life and gave you that gift, he didn't do it to make a point. He did it to make a difference. And we need to live our lives not to make points, but to make a difference. And when you're posting, are you posting to make a difference, or are you posting to make a point? What does it mean to have our hearts shaped like Jesus? Because that's where the freedom is that you're looking for. Let me pray for us. God, we come to you today. May you shape our hearts to be like you. May you form us. May we have the patience. May we have the courage. May we have the bravery to step back. Sometimes, Lord, we recognize the courageous thing is not to say something right away, but to take a moment. Say, God, would I have compassion on this person? Would I have compassion on the person on the other side of this phone, on the other side of this app, on the other side of this conversation? Would I see them as a human being? As I stand up for what I think is right, would I actually form an educated response and treat them the way I would want to be treated? So that I might become shaped like you. That I might become free in a culture of anger. And I pray this in your name. Amen.